That's basically a consensus of, from the academic community in China and also the United States. That's probably the worst, the worst since the two countries established their relationship. And also we are not seeing the bottom yet. We are seeing basically every day there's U.S. criticism or you can say bills on Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, Taiwan from the United States against China. And also now you have South China Sea. Basically, the U.S. is changing as its policy on that issue, despite the fact that it's not clement about that area. So you can see the U.S. is changing its policy toward China from engagement mostly, and now to a confrontation, a complete confrontation against China. So you can see like Tibet, Xinjiang, or South China Sea is being used more or less as a card against the Chinese side. Previously, these are not outstanding issue, but now it's becoming the central issue between the two countries. So that's unfortunate. That's, the Chinese side, Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently has called for more open dialogue between the two countries, because the Chinese side would ask, what does the U.S. want, out of this relationship, or what does the U.S. want from China for this relationship to continue to keep to be stable and to be peaceful. I mean, even Lighthizer, for example, the trade representative of the United States, he admits he doesn't know the end game of the trade negotiation, of the trade war launched by the U.S. against China. So the U.S. itself is not really clear what they want out of China, out of the relationship. So I think I do agree with Minister Wang Yi that the two sides need urgently to sit down and talk to each other about the bottom line, about, even there's a competition, that's fine. But we have to have a bottom line. I mean, how low can we go? And whether we will involve, in the worst scenario, I mean, the militarily, or even a military conflict between the two, biggest countries, most powerful countries, that will be a nightmare, not only for the two countries, the two peoples, but also the whole world.
It's interesting, we heard Larry Kudlow and Jim Spellman's report saying there's been a sea change in attitudes about China. We see every election year, you see the candidates kind of position against China and kind of beat up on China. So I guess when it comes this time of year, we're 4 months away from an election in November, you expect some of this. But how bad do you think it's going to get leading up to the election? And then what do you see following the election?
I see, in a time running to the election, I would say probably the situation will get even worse in the sense of probably the more sanctions in terms of Hong Kong from the U.S. side against the Chinese side. And of course, there will be retaliatory measures from the Chinese side. So you can see more deterioration of the relationship between the two countries. And partly because in the U.S. it's almost like a practice. China is the poster boy to China bashing is part of the strategy, for example, for the Republicans. If the candidate asked about questions on handling of the COVID-19, you would always talk about China, always blame China. So that's a blame game on China. And also you have like Biden, the candidate of the Democrats, and Trump. Basically, they are outcast trying to be who is tougher on China. So the Trump administration will, so they do have the incentive to be tougher on China. So after the election, hopefully, either with the continuation or second term of Trump administration, or we have a new Biden government over there in Washington, hopefully the two countries can start talking to each other at least, what we can do. Are we going to continue to fight? And without knowing what is the bottom line, without knowing that even it is hurting ourselves, we will still continue to fight. I mean, senseless, it's right, because it's not serving the interests of either side. If we continue to fight, we have to find a way to be rational to be responsible for both peoples, and also to be responsible as the two largest countries, responsible for the whole world. Now we have the pandemic. and we're not cooperating really to deal with the threat, and we should do so. Unfortunately, it's not the case. So we are being hurt from the lack of cooperation. Hopefully, after the election, when the things settles on in Washington D.C., and there will be a resumption of discussion with whoever in the White House.
Well, Qinduo Xu, always